The Portuguese population is mostly Catholic, mainly due to the tradition and historical circumstances that Portugal had and experienced in the past. According to the 2011 censuses, Catholics make up about 81% of the Portuguese population, thus giving the Catholic Church a considerable influence on society, although not as much now as in the past. In addition to Catholics, Portugal also has a relatively significant presence of evangelicals, or Protestants, and Jehovah's Witnesses, 0.5%. Jews, Anglicans, Islamists, Hindus, Orthodox, Baha'is, Buddhists, Gnostics, and Spiritists are the remaining minority religious groups that exist in this European country. According to a study conducted in 2005, about 81% of the Portuguese population indicated that they believe in God, about 12% that they believe that there is some form of spirit or life force, and still about 6% that they do not believe that there is a divine force, God, or life force. Demography. In the censuses conducted by the National Statistics Institute, questions have arisen about the religion of the Portuguese. The results of these censuses are public knowledge and can be considered as an unbiased source for an analysis of religious demography in Portugal. The following table shows the distribution of the Portuguese population according to the answer to the question about religion in the censuses of 1900, 1940, 1950, 1960, 1981, 1991, 2001, 2011 and 2021. It is important to bear in mind that the censuses carried out in Portugal have some limitations. 1. It was only in 1900 and after 1981 that religious groups discriminated against the non-Catholic population. 2. The not responding option only clearly appeared after 1981, however, in 1900 and 1940 there was a group classified as ignored religion. 3. In 1950, only the Catholic population was identified. Legal perspective. In Portugal, the Constitution enshrines freedom of conscience, religion and worship, Art. 41. The legal framework for this freedom is defined by two documents, the Concordat signed by the Portuguese state and the Holy See, in 2004, and the Religious Freedom Act, 2001. Concordat with the Holy See. In 2004, a Concordat was signed between Portugal and the Holy See. It is a treaty that replaces the 1940 Concordat and defines the relations between the Catholic Church in Portugal and the statute of this religion in the Portuguese state. Because it is an international treaty, the content of the Concordat has greater legal value than the Religious Freedom Act, which is merely a law of the Republic. Agreement with Imamat Ismaili. In May 2008, the Portuguese state signed an agreement with Imamat Ismaili, recognizing legal personality to the Ismaili community. This agreement was due to the fact that the Ismaili community does not formally have its own autonomous local or national religious authority in each country. This agreement was approved by the Assembly of the Republic in June 2010. This agreement contains 8 articles, on the recognition of legal personality, and also on cooperation, protection of religious identity, organization, religious education and culture establishments, and non-religious schools, among other topics. With regard to religious formation establishments, Portugal recognizes Imamat's right to establish and sustain these places, and their internal functioning is not subject to state supervision. The Imamat and the Ismaili community also acquired the right to found, create and manage schools at all levels of training and education. In addition, the Minister of Justice may appoint a representative appointed by the Imamat to the Religious Freedom Committee, and the Portuguese government may also appoint another representative appointed by the Imamat to the Committee on the Issuance Time of Religious Confessions, another representative appointed by the Imamat, after hearing the Committee on Religious Freedom. Religious Freedom Act. The Religious Freedom Act establishes the principles, individual and collective rights, the statute of churches and religious communities and of the Committee on Religious Freedom, the forms of cooperation between the state and religious confessions, and the reservations for applying the law to the Catholic Church. Portugal follows the principle of separation between state and religious confessions. According to the Religious Freedom Act, the Portuguese state is non-confessional. This means that it does not adopt any official religion, nor does it rule on religious issues, and does not program education or culture according to confessional guidelines. Article 41.4 of the Portuguese Constitution states that churches and other religious communities are separate from the state and are free in their organization and in the exercise of their functions and worship. Committee on Religious Freedom. The Religious Freedom Committee was created under the Religious Freedom Act and is an advisory body of the government and the Assembly of the Republic, whose functions are to present opinions and proposals on the application of the Religious Freedom Act, namely on draft agreements between the state and religious communities, legal recognition of religious collective persons, and the establishment of religious confessions and the composition of the committee on the issuance time of religious confessions. The Commission has a 3-year term of office and consists of 11 people. In September 2016, this commission was sworn in with the following composition: José Vera Jardim, President, appointed by the government; Alfredo Manuel Matos Alves Rodrigues Teixeira, appointed by the Portuguese Episcopal Conference; Manuel Saturino de Costa Gomes, appointed by the Portuguese Episcopal Conference; Abdul Karim Vakil, designated by the Islamic Community of Lisbon; Esther Muxnik, designated by the Israeli Community of Lisbon; Fernando Soares Loha, designated by the Portuguese Evangelical Alliance; André Falk, appointed by the Minister of Justice; Rahim Firoz Ali, member of the Ismaili Muslim community, appointed by the Minister of Justice; Alpesh Kumar Rankardas, member of the Hindu community, appointed by the Minister of Justice; Luciano José dos Santos Cruz, member of the Buddhist community, appointed by the Minister of Justice; Miguel Chaves Ribeiro Assis Raimundo, appointed by the Minister of Justice. Between 2007 and 2016, this commission had the following composition: Mario Soares, President, appointed by the government; José Borges de Pinho, nominated by the Portuguese Episcopal Conference; Father Manuel Saturino de Costa Gomes, nominated by the Portuguese Episcopal Conference; Abdul Karim Vakil, nominated by the Islamic Community of Lisbon; Esther Muxnik, nominated by the Lisbon Israeli Community; Fernando Soares Loha, nominated by the Portuguese Evangelical Alliance; Teles Pereira, appointed by the Minister of Justice; Jorge Basilar Gouveia, appointed by the Minister of Justice; André Falk, appointed by the Minister of Justice; Ashok Andrade, member of the Lisbon Hindu community, appointed by the Minister of Justice; Nazim Ahmad, President of the Aga Khan Foundation Portugal, appointed by the Minister of Justice. On January 13, 2010, Pedro Basilar de Vasconcelos replaced Jorge Basilar Gouveia in this committee. Presence on television. According to the Religious Freedom Act, public television channels guarantee registered religious communities an airtime on specific programs. This guarantee is materialized in the programs The Faith of Men and Paths. The government created the Committee on the Issuance Time of Religious Confessions, which works together with RTP to assign and distribute the issuance times according to criteria of representation. Religious education in public schools. The Religious Freedom Act states that churches and other religious communities may request that they be allowed to provide religious education in the public elementary and secondary schools that they indicate. This teaching is optional. The functioning of religious education classes for a confession depends on the existence of a minimum number of students, who have, by the guardian or by themselves, who are over 16 years of age, expressed the desire to attend the course. Programs are established for religious education for the following churches or religious denominations: Catholic Church, Evangelical Christian Churches, Bahá'í Teachings, Buddhism. The legal regime for teaching and organizing the discipline of Catholic moral and religious education in public elementary and secondary schools was approved by Decree Law No. 70/2013, of May 23. Religious confessions. According to the censuses carried out in 2001, 7,353,548 people, or about 85% of the Portuguese population, identified themselves as Catholics. However, according to a study by the Catholic Church itself, also from 2001, among these 7.3 million faithful, only 1,933,677, 19% of the total population, of Catholics perform Catholic Sunday practice, commonly referred to as Sunday Mass, while the number of communicants is fixed at 1065036 practicing Catholics, 10% of the total population. About half of the marriages performed are Catholic marriages, about 50% according to the IN. 26, which automatically produce civil effects. It should be noted that in some cases there are situations in which, at the option of the spouses, the civil marriage takes place first and, later, the Catholic marriage, which is therefore not included in the official statistics. Divorce is allowed both in civil marriages and in religious marriages as established in the Portuguese Civil Code, by mutual consent or by application in court by one of the spouses, although canonical marriage law does not provide for this figure. There are a military ordinary 8 and 17 dioceses in Portugal, the last of which are grouped into 3 ecclesiastical provinces presided over by the Patriarchate of Lisbon and the archdioceses of Braga and Évora. Although the Catholic Church, formerly the official and unofficial religion of Portugal, and the state were already separated by a law enacted during the First Portuguese Republic, 1910 to 1926-27, this church, mainly due to the large number of Portuguese Catholics and by virtue of the historical legacy and the Catholic tradition, continues to have a relative weight in Portuguese society and culture, although not as much as before. For example, many Portuguese public holidays, festivities, and customs have a Catholic religious origin and/or connotation. The Catholic Church also maintains an appreciable network of social assistance, public health, and education in operation, not necessarily religious education. It is also common for many public official ceremonies, such as inaugurations of buildings or official state events, to have the presence of a representative of the Catholic Church and of the practice of Catholic religious acts, such as blessings or masses. In legal terms, the Catholic Church still has some former specific benefits and privileges, which other religions do not have, currently enshrined in the 2004 Concordat. But it's just that, this weight and influence on social life has drastically decreased over the past few decades. This worrying fact for the Catholic Church is expressed, for example, in the decrease in the number of Catholics who attend Sunday Mass and who take communion, revealing a loss of religiosity within society, and also in the legalization of abortion at the request of women up to 10 weeks of pregnancy, despite the strong opposition of the Church. Despite the decline in religiosity among the younger and more urban strata, Catholic religiosity still continues to profoundly mark Portuguese tradition and culture. Not infrequently, this religiosity is expressed in popular and unofficial practices of the Catholic Church, such as popular devotion to the saints and to the different invocations of the Virgin Mary, especially, starting in 1917, to the famous Our Lady of Fatima. This popular devotion is expressed, in addition to prayers, in processions, pilgrimages and pilgrimages. Many of these religious events are accompanied by lively festivals and traditional folk fairs. Among the main centers of Portuguese pilgrimage and devotion are the National Sanctuary of Christ the King, in Almada, and the Sanctuary of Our Lady of Fatima, in Cova da Iria, in Fatima. Protestantism. Protestants in Portugal have several denominations. They are divided into several categories, ranging from historic churches, Congregational, Presbyterian, Methodist, Baptist, and Lutheran, Pentecostal, such as the Assembly of God, Neo-Pentecostal, such as the Mana Church, to more conservative churches. The most important are, Evangelical Congregational Church, Christian Congregation in Portugal, Presbyterian Church, Lusitana Church, the Convention of the Assemblies of God in Portugal, the Assembly of the Brothers, the Methodist Church, the Mana Church, the Baptist churches, the independent churches. In Portugal, several faithful, individuals, and several evangelical churches joined the Portuguese Evangelical Alliance, and entity that represents them. The historic Protestant, Presbyterian, Methodist, and Orthodox churches of the Greek Rite are grouped together in the Portuguese Council of Christian Churches, a body that only admits churches as members. There are currently close to 100,000 evangelicals in Portugal. Evangelical churches are in almost every Portuguese municipality, with only 14 municipalities left to say that they are from the north to the south of the country. The Evangelical Alliance has an event called Portugal 2015 Inches, in which the intention is for an evangelical church to be opened in each of these municipalities by 2015. Jehovah's Witnesses. Jehovah's Witnesses have more than 52,000 practitioners in Portugal, distributed over 650 congregations, and sympathizers reach a similar number. This can be seen in the 2013 Yearbook of Jehovah's Witnesses, which states that around 95,000 people attended their main celebration, the commemoration of the death of Christ, in 2012. Religion has been present in the country since 1925 and was officially banned between 1961 and 1974, during which time it operated in hiding. In December 1974, after the Carnation Revolution that overthrew the Estado Novo, the Association of Jehovah's Witnesses was legally recognized and today has its headquarters in Alcabidesh. In 2009, they were officially recognized as a religious community based in Portugal. After 84 years of presence in the country, and 8 years of waiting for recognition, Jehovah's Witnesses can now enjoy the highest legal and religious status existing in the country. The certificate of establishment in Portugal as a religious community was fundamental for Jehovah's Witnesses to be able to provide religious assistance in public hospitals and prisons, as well as the possibility of celebrating religious marriages through an ordained minister. Portugal is currently one of 240 countries where this religious denomination is currently active. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Latter-day Saints, also known as Mormons, have approximately 40,000 members in Portugal, spread over about 77 congregations. The first church meetings held in Portugal were among the United States Armed Forces stationed in the country in the early 1970s. Later, in 1974, the church, which was then presided over by President Spencer W. Kimball, visited Portugal and received confirmation that the church would be recognized and that missionaries could start working in the country. In November 1974, Elder William Grant Bangerter of the 70 arrived in Lisbon to preside over the newly created Portugal-Lisbon Mission. 4 missionaries were transferred from a mission in Brazil to begin the work. The first church meetings were held at the home of a member of the Canadian Embassy who was living in Portugal. Seventh-day Adventist Church. Today there are about 9,000 baptized members. However, adding young people and children, the Seventh-day Adventist Church defends baptism only after awareness and maturity of the decision, which is individual, all involved in the youth ministry, which is divided into clubs. 3 to 5 are the Seventh-day Adventists, 6 to 9 years called Tizos, from 10 to 15 Pathfinders, starting from 16 years of age they seek to be leaders. Those enrolled in the Sabbath school reached 15,000 believers. Anglicanism. Anglicans in Portugal are organized into the Lusitanian Catholic Apostolic Evangelical Church, which was founded in 1880. At first, this Anglican church was aided by a council of bishops chaired by Lord Plunkett, at that time Bishop of the Diocese of Meath, Ireland. The first Portuguese Anglican bishop was only consecrated in 1958. Full integration into the Anglican Communion occurred only in 1980 when the church was transformed into an extra-provincial diocese under the authority of the Archbishop of Canterbury. Judaism. The Jewish community in Portugal has managed to remain so far, despite the order to expel the Jews on December 5, 1496 by decree of King Manuel I, forcing many to choose between forced conversions or the effective expulsion from the country, or the imprisonment and subsequent sentences imposed by the Portuguese Inquisition, which, precisely for this reason, ended up being one of the most active in Europe. The way in which worship developed in the Riona village of Belmonte, as well as in small villages in Trás-os-Montes, is one of the examples of the perseverance of the Jews as a unit in Portugal. In 1506, in Lisbon, there was a massacre of Jews, where many were killed and wounded, becoming one of the most violent at the time, at European level. Bahá'í Faith. The first campaigns to promote the Bahá'í religion in Portugal took place in 1926, but it was only in 1949 that the community began to establish its institutions. That year the Lisbon Local Spiritual Assembly was elected, and in 1962 the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of Portugal was elected. Before the April 25th revolution, Baha'is were subject to police surveillance and several of their activities were prohibited. In 1975, the Bahá'í community of Portugal was recognized as a religious legal entity, and in 2005 it obtained the status of an established religious community. Thousands, 29, of Baha'is currently reside in Portugal, mainland, Azores and Madeira, distributed over 150 locations. The community headquarters are located in Lisbon. Other religions. There are also Islamic minorities, about 15,000 people, 30, and Hindus, about 7,000, sources needed, based mostly on the descendants of immigrants, as well as some specific focuses, some only at the regional level, of Buddhists, Gnostics, and Spiritists. Agnosticism/atheism. There are currently around 420,000 to 947,000, 4 to 9% of the total population, in Portugal who are atheists or agnostics, 31, while, in another study, 6.5% of the population identified themselves as atheists or agnostics. Candomblé Yoruba. The Portuguese community of Candomblé Yoruba was recognized as a religious collective person in April 2010. This community professes an Afro-descendant Candomblé religion with Yoruba origins, Kwaito, Oyo, Ijesha, etc., and is made up of people from various backgrounds, including Portuguese, Brazilians, and Yoruba Africans. Without dependence on a higher structure, the Portuguese community of Candomblé Yoruba intends to preserve the Yoruba African cultural and religious traditions in Portuguese territory, officially representing religion and promoting public ceremonies and worship of deities, initiating institutional dialogue in order to promote interreligious dialogue and better knowledge of a religious tradition that amounts to 10,000 years, through the participation and organization of colloquiums, debates, workshops and training.